Part 1. What is sensation fiction? Sensation fiction was a literary genre that was highly popular in Victorian Britain during the 1860s and 1870s. The genre was a development from early 19th century Gothic texts with an added interest in sensationalised narratives. This was mainly due to an increase in sensationalist reporting in newspapers. Lynn Piker aptly described sensation fiction, saying murder, blackmail, fraud, adultery and bigamy are common plot components in the sensation novel's unveiling of the secrets of respectable society. Sensation fiction is concerned with revelations, the idea that these narratives reveal the duplicitous nature of social reality, and that the crime and scandal that takes place in fiction is something that could exist in the lives of those reading. Part 2. Why did sensation fiction become popular? The increased popularity of sensation fiction can be attributed to a number of different factors, all of which took place at similar points in the late 19th century. A growing consumer culture, improving literacy rates, the invention of the railway, allowing for greater mass distribution, and industrialisation all created a way of mass-producing cheap, popular literature. Sensation fiction was notable for being a class-crossing genre. These texts were able to cut across the boundaries between high and low literature, with the wealthy and formal society being blended with violence and crime. As Matthew Rubery describes, the gripping plots of these novels involve scandalous events, often perpetrated by seemingly moral and upright individuals in familiar domestic settings. It only makes sense then that crime and scandal existing hidden just underneath respectable life would elicit excitement in all readers and grow in popularity. Part 3. Penny Dreadfuls. Penny Dreadfuls were a form of sensation fiction that were significantly more gruesome and violent. These stories were published in magazines, with pages coming out weekly and each of them costing a penny. The stories are responsible for introducing notable literary characters such as Sweeney Todd in The Strings of Pearls and Sexton Blake in The Missing Millionaire. Kate Summerscale in The Guardian describes Penny Dreadfuls as Britain's first taste of mass-produced popular culture, which were particularly popular for the young. The grisly and gruesome nature of these Penny Dreadfuls were representations of the growing public interest in these sorts of crimes. The very famous Jack the Ripper killings, a series of murders that took place in Whitechapel in 1888, were widely reported in the news, with the alleged killer sending letters to various media outlets. The wide reporting of these crimes and of similar such cases were highly influential on the public's subconscious, as there was a sense that these crimes were mysteries that could be analysed and solved. The translation of this into literature is obvious, with writers taking already sensationalised events and transforming it into sensation fiction, usually with a sense of narrative closure. Part 4. Lady Audley's Secret. Another form of sensation fiction can be seen in narratives involving some type of scandal of those of the middle and upper classes. One such example of this is Mary Elizabeth Braddon's 1862 novel, Lady Audley's Secret. The novel centres on Robert Audley and his attempts to discover the whereabouts of his recently missing friend George Talboys. Robert suspects Lady Audley, the newly married wife of his uncle Michael, of wrongdoing. Eventually it is revealed that Lady Audley is married to George, but after assuming he had died, she married Michael in an attempt to cover up her accidental bigamy and avoid the possible consequences. She pushed George down a well. After her plans fail, she is committed to an asylum where she eventually dies. John Sutherland describes the novel as the most sensationally successful of all the sensation novels, with Matthew Rubery describing it as one of the first and best known sensation novels. The popularity of this text derives from its scandal, with layers and layers of secrecy and mystery being uncovered at every turn in the novel. Over the course of the novel, Lady Audley abandons her child, is unknowingly bigamous, attempts to kill her first husband, considers poisoning her second, consistently lies to all those around her, and attempts to murder 2 men by setting a hotel on fire. The key component of these actions in the narrative, and why scandalous sensation fiction in general is intriguing to readers, is that they are taking place within a familiar domestic setting, wherein this level of crime and mystery would have been considered impossible. In chapter 18 of the first volume, Braddon considers this exact thing, having the character of Robert say, "Foul deeds have been done under the most hospitable roofs. Terrible crimes have been committed amid the fairest scenes, and have left no trace upon the spot where they were done. We may walk unconsciously in an atmosphere of crime, and breathe none the less freely. I believe that we may look into the smiling face of a murderer and admire its tranquil beauty." Essentially, these texts are about revealing a seedy underbelly of everyday life. They present anxieties and fears that exist within the home and sensationalize it. More often than not, this fear is geared towards women and the role of women within domestic life. As Anthea Trott suggests, the criminal angel in the house offered a dramatic way of formulating concerns about women's relations to the domestic environment and about the dependence, dissatisfaction, and dissimulation variously associated with her role. Lady Audley is a character that encapsulates this fear. She is positioned as a seemingly normal and upstanding person of upper-class living, but as the narrative unfolds, more details are revealed about her, and the facade of pleasant domestic living crumbles. She is a sensation heroine, and like most sensation heroines, she suffers. The conclusion of Lady Audley's secret is conservative. There is a return to the status quo, and Lady Audley is punished for her transgressions in terms of her class, in terms of her domestic role, and in terms of her gender.